Hey guys, today is the National Day of Prayer in the United States. So in your prayer time, please remember our country, that God would bring us through this terrible time in our country. It's getting worse by the minute. And if you're not an American, please pray for us Americans, because we're experiencing the consequences of having the worst president in the history of America, literally, and the most corrupt president we ever had. Everything's coming to light, and I'm sure he'll be gone in January of 2024. It should be his last day in the office, Lord willing. But it's interesting. I've heard several pastors say they've been at the National Day of Prayer because, you know, it's a tradition for like the past 73 years that the White House will have a prayer breakfast and a prayer, a day of prayer, and they'll have pastors come out and, give a little sermon. And I've heard several pastors say that Obama and Biden told them what they can read from the Bible and what they couldn't read from the Bible. And they said Trump just gave him free reign. And this is the one thing a lot of people forgot about Trump, what we loved about him. Obama had a major assault on free speech and freedom of religion. And Trump just thumbed his nose at the free speech police, the political correctness crowd. And he would say the most outrageous things just to upset them. A lot of people didn't like what he said, but he just wanted to prove that America was all about free speech. And although he wasn't, no one would claim that he was this great Christian, he was the greatest president for all Christians. Like Winston Churchill once said, "I'm not the best parishioner, but I'm the best protector of the parishioners." And that was Trump. We had someone in the White House that looked out for us Christians, that believed in religious freedom, believed in freedom of speech, which is hand in hand. That's why it's our First Amendment, freedom of speech and freedom of religion. They go hand in hand. And this is why the communists hate both of them. They try and control us. But, and with Trump, we had moral clarity. He would never try and say, well, it's partly Hamas's fault, partly Israel's fault. No. First of all, this would have never happened in Israel if Trump was president. We had peace everywhere when Trump was president because he knew who the good guys were and who the bad guys were. He wouldn't give a penny to Hamas. He wouldn't give a penny to Iran. Biden comes in and gives these guys billions of dollars so they can attack Israel. But, today's a day of prayer, so let's pray for our nation. And I believe our best days are ahead of us. I truly believe that. But I wanted to acknowledge it was a day of prayer, but today I really wanted to talk about celebrity Catholics. There's been a lot in the news lately. Candace Owens was the latest, I think, and it was Rob Schneider before that, and Shia LaBeouf. And everybody makes a big deal. And, it is exciting, when people of influence become Catholic, because then they can influence other people to become Catholic. So that's pretty cool. But out of all of them, who I'm mostly impressed with is Kevin James. You don't see Kevin James going on YouTube and making a big deal about it. But he's witnessing and evangelizing the people. And, he's led Rob Schneider to Catholicism. He's led Boss Rutan, the MMA fighter, Lee Remy, Carrie from their show they were in, Doug and Carrie. Now I forgot the show. King of Queens. But he just does it under the radar. But apparently he has a major effect on people that he is around personally. But he doesn't go out on YouTube bragging or arguing or debating. He just takes care of business. And these are the people I'm more impressed with, even more than Kevin James. The Catholics, honestly, I came back to the church 8 years ago, and the Catholics that really impressed me, honest, 100%, every time I go to daily mass and I see the same people there, hundreds of them in my church, every day, faithfully going to Mass, daily Mass. And not only are they going to daily Mass, but these people get there early and say the rosary together. They stay afterwards and they're in adoration. And you know what they're doing? They're praying for us. They're praying for you and me. They're praying for the church. They're praying for the world. They're praying for our children and our grandchildren. They're praying for the conversion of the world. And I see these same people, and they get no pats on the back. Nobody claps for them. They get no recognition. None of them are leaders of any ministries that I know of. You know, maybe there are some there, but everybody, you know, everybody's so busy, you know. See people that go in there praying every day. These are the Catholics that impress me the most, and I admire, and I try and emulate. You know, when I see them, I always thought, wow, you know, a lot of these people are very much older than me. And I bet there's a lot of them that are dealing with things, you know, that are scary. And sure enough, my suspicions were confirmed. There's a lot of these women and men in daily Mass that have terminal cancer and other terminal illnesses, but you would never know it because they, you know, they have the joy of the Lord. They realize being a Christian means much more than this earthly body, this shell that we're in, much more than the houses we live in on this planet and the cars we drive. Their spirituality is so deep. Their relationship with Christ is so deep that they just want to be with him every second of their breath, every second of their life. You know, and I had one woman, she passed away. She was about 90. When I had a few years back, I had a job I was with, it went out of business out of the blue, and I was looking for a job, and it was trying to find a job getting harder every day. But it was like that. It was like that. That song. And I went to daily Mass, and I told this woman my situation. I said, "Would you pray for me?" And she looked at me so confident and said, "You'll find a job today." And I had 5 job offers that day, and I took one, and I had that job for several years. But you know, even if I didn't get a job, I was happy that woman was praying for me, because like I said, this earth is fleeting. This shell of a body is fleeting. What do we live, 80, 90 years, 100 if we're lucky, you know? But eternity, I had a woman that was in touch, that was so close to eternity, praying for me, praying for my eternal soul, you know? And this is why I love my friend John Edwards from Catholic for Rednecks. He understands, he totally understands this concept. You know, he's an ex-Marine, ex-Alabama cop, you know, just a, you know, tough dude, great guy. You know, if you seen my live show with him, we were laughing and joking. We just have fun together. You know, we have the joy of the Lord, both of us, and we just love, you know, hanging out, talking. But he left being a police officer because he got deceived maybe into believing the prosperity gospel was true. And he went to Bible college and became a prosperity preacher. And he preached at a church, was on TV, cable, made a bunch of money. These prosperity preachers make some money. He was making bank, you know. And then his 12-year-old daughter had an aneurysm and died instantly, unexpected. Can you imagine that horror? Can you imagine? I can't even, I have one daughter, and I can't even think about it. The heartache that he must have felt, him and his wife and his children, you know, her siblings. And he became an alcoholic, you know. He just, because the people in the prosperity gospel, they preach if you got enough faith, that won't happen. They actually said to him, usually when a child dies, it's because the father was committing adultery. So he just had a tragic loss in his life, and they're trying to blame him. This is how wicked and demonic the prosperity preachers are. You know, Joel Osteen up there with his smile, he's lost, man. You know, Jeff Furtick, I think his name is Furtick, another one that's lost. These people they're all multimillionaires, telling you give them more money, make them richer, and you won't have no problems. You'll have health and wealth. It's a lie from the pit of hell. And John realized that, but he was so distraught, he became an alcoholic. And then God started drawing him back. So he started studying Christianity and went back to the oldest, more classical Protestantism, the Reformed faith, like the Calvinists. And he found much deeper faith than with this, new 50-year-old prosperity gospel or this 100-year-old evangelical church in America. He found, 500-year-old church. But then we started studying Catholicism, the most ancient church that's been around since 33 AD. He found the answer that he was looking for. He said no religion, no Christian sect could make sense of the tragedy he went through of a 12-year-old daughter dying unexpectedly, except Catholicism. You see, because St. Paul says something that Protestants can't explain. St. Paul says this: I suffer to fulfill what is lacking in the suffering of Christ. It doesn't fit with evangelical systematic theology, but it fits with what Jesus taught and what the apostles taught. What that means is Jesus lacks nothing. He lacks our suffering, because for us to be one with Jesus, to abide in Jesus, not only do we experience the resurrection when we die that he experienced, but we have to experience his suffering. And when you understand that your suffering is attached to Christ and it brings you closer, that even our wife and children are just temporary here on this earth. They're just temporary gifts. Our life belongs to God, and eternity is what we should be all about. When you realize that, and you realize that life is eternal, and we should be looking at eternity in heaven, that even the worst suffering can be tolerated. It still hurts. I'm sure he still misses her crazy, and he still grieves her. But you understand it. Now it all makes sense. Our suffering, Jesus wasn't spared. God the Father didn't spare his son. Jesus didn't spare none of his apostles. Yeah, John died of old age. St. John was the only one who wasn't martyred, but he was tortured. He was exiled. He was beaten, So why should we be? Health and wealth, prosperity. Give me enough money, you'll never be sick. Give me enough money, you'll never be broke. What? How is that even Christian? That's just foreign to what the apostles taught and what Jesus taught. Christians always suffer, but it brings us closer to Christ. This is why when John, just a couple years ago, his son, forgive me if I get his age wrong, but I think he was 29, died of brain cancer. But he instilled in his son such a strong faith that his son was praising the Lord till his last day. His son was a testimony of what living for Jesus was. So this is why I love John, Catholic for Rednecks. Sometimes people are like, dude, you guys are opposite. You're a Jersey dude, from the inner city. This guy's a country bumpkin. This is why I love John from Catholics for Rednecks, because he's real. He's the real deal. You're not going to, just like me, you're not going to see him on some fancy vacation in Rome or Israel or France, showing his YouTube videos. No, we're both working slobs. We go to work every day. But we've been through the fire. He's been through worse fires than me, but we've both been through the fire. And we're just here to tell you, man, it's worth it. Keep fighting the fight. Keep running the race. It's worth it to stay Catholic. So stay Catholic.